All right, this is Truth Be Told. I'm Tony Sweet and Captain Ron, and we have the ultimate, the best interview that you can ever imagine. We have the one and only, the godfather of ufology, the one that started pretty much everybody on their journey when it comes to UFOs and ancient alien theorists. But we have the godfather of ufology right here.
The one guy that does not need an introduction.
Yeah, he doesn't need an introduction, so we're just going to go ahead and bring him on. We have the one and only Erich von Däniken. How are you doing, sir?
Look, I am sitting in Switzerland. I am Swiss. I'm in the meantime 84 years old. The weather is clear, blue sky, white snow mountains. I just enjoy life.
Well,
awesome.
With that, I could see why. But I know we have a limited time with you because you are one of the busiest man in this industry. And but I'm going to let Captain Ron take the first question because I know he's just ready to go.
Yeah, I'm chomping at the bit for a week now. Here we go, Eric. I wanted to, obviously we all admire your work, and everybody we have on the show off air tells us how Chariots of the Gods started them down this path, as it did for Tony and I. So here we are 50 years later. What are the biggest discoveries you've seen that have been made since Chariots of the Gods that support the position of there being ancient aliens in our distant past?
Well, that's an endless story.
That's right.
First, in the Great Pyramid of Egypt, practically every 2 years, new shafts, new corridors, new rooms in and under the pyramid are discovered, and the public hears nothing of it. I am informed. That means more rooms, more shafts inside means at the same time the planning becomes more complicated. You know, according to Egyptology, it should have been a pharaoh with the name of Cheops, about roughly 2500 BC, who was the constructor of the Great Pyramid. But at that time, the engineers did not exist to plan such a complicated building. Of course, it would be possible for humans to move stone blocks around some way and another. But before you start to construct such a gigantic building, you must make the planning. You cannot finish the building and later some priest come up and say, listen, I need now a shaft in there. But the shaft is 82 meters long and has only a side length of 14 centimeters. So too small to send the Lilliput man in there. So it's all planning made before the construction of the pyramid. And that's complicated. So we have to ask, who was the planner of the Great Pyramid and why? That's one thing.
But are these shafts always the same and similar, or do you notice, or have you heard anything like different from different eras, different times?
Yes, they are different. Well, about the time, we can only speculate. Nobody knows for sure.
Right.
But there are different shafts. One of them is 68 meters long. Another of them is 35 meters long. You know, there is a big passageway in the Great Pyramid, which is called the Great Gallery. Tourists know the Great Gallery. You can go in there. The Great Gallery is 47 meters long and 8 meters high. Now, the newest discoveries have found another Great Gallery just on top of the one. You know, we discovered all this by electromagnetic waves, but nobody can go in there because the shafts and the corridors which lead into these rooms are too small. You cannot climb in there. So the mystery becomes bigger and bigger. But that's only one part of your question. You remember Palenque. Palenque is Mexico, and
right.
there is a tombstone in the so-called Temple of Inscription. It was the cover of my first book, Chariots of the Gods, the picture of the cover. And, of course, at that time, 50 years ago, archaeologists were absolutely sure it just shows the ruler of Palenque. His name is Pakal, and he is sitting in the open mouth of a mythological monster. In the meantime, 50 years have passed. American archaeologists, their names are Stewart and Stewart, because it's the father and the son, from the University of Texas. They are the best translators of Maya hieroglyphics. They have now made new translations of this tombstone of Palenque because there is a writing around it. And they confirm, yes, it is Pakal, the second last ruler of Palenque, but Pakal has nothing to do with the open mouth of a mythological monster or with birds or with teeth and beards of the weather god. Pakal on his tombstone is fully related to the universe, to the cosmos. Every detail has to do with the cosmos in there. So it continues and continues practically every month. I am happy to hear new discoveries and new translations.
We love that. Now, I believe you state that Enoch is behind the Great Pyramid and not Khufu for the reasons you just stated. What do you think? Isn't it frustrate you that mainstream archaeology resists this to accepting these ideas?
Well, because we have no proof. Of course, we have a Book of Enoch. The Book of Enoch is not part of the Bible. In the Bible, you read only 2 phrases about Enoch. The Book of Enoch was found in an old library in a convent in Ethiopia roughly 180 years ago. And in the Book of Enoch, it's Enoch himself who says, because he writes in the first person, who writes that he was abducted, he was taken away by some guardians of the skies. Today we would call them extraterrestrials. He learned their language. They taught him in several belongings, including engineering, including astronomy. I remember a passage where one of the teachers says to young Enoch, by the way, he first learns the language of the extraterrestrials. The teacher says to young Enoch, human, look out of the window. Do you see this little light out there? You humans, you call it moon. But the moon has no light by itself. The moon receives his light from the sun. And then he explains him why the moon sometimes is full and half full and empty and so on. He explains him our solar system, why the planets surround the sun, etc., etc. All these are scientific instructions given before the Great Flood. Enoch was a Stone Age man. And finally, they dictated him roughly 100 books. That's he himself who says to his son, with the name of Methuselah, I have written 100 books. Where are these 100 books? We only have one of them, the one which was found in the convent in Ethiopia. And Enoch said to his son of Methuselah, before he left the planet Earth in a fiery chariot with the extraterrestrials, now I give you all these books, my son Methuselah. Keep them carefully for the generations after the Great Flood. And today we discover more and more shafts and rooms in the Great Pyramid. And I would not be, surprised if sooner or later we find a library in or under the Great Pyramid.
Well, it states in that one Enoch book that, in fact, that's why they built the pyramid. Enoch tried to house these old writings.
That's exactly the meaning. And sooner or later we have to find out. And when we find out, when we have a scientific, clear position, then we should go to public.
Man, I hope it happens in my lifetime, I'll tell you.
Well, I hope so too, but in the meantime, I'm 84 years old.
Yeah, but you're going like a spark plug. I'm not worried about you. I'm worried about me. You're going to be fine. Erich, over the years, I've noticed that you seem much more sure of yourself in these proclamations. In Chariots of the Gods, as we know, you had 238 question marks. Now we're 50 years later. Do you feel that those can now change to exclamation marks? Do you feel more confident in that?
Yes, definitely. Of course, as an old man, you know much more than you know before.
You're calling me an old man?
Well, you know much more than you know before.
That's right.
Of course, you have to learn that you made some mistakes in Chariots of the Gods. When you were young, you were trusting to everybody. You were not self-critical enough, etc. In the meantime, as an old man, you have many, many connections. I know so many brilliant men and women on this planet, also from Egyptology and other parts of archaeology. And when we sit together among us 4 or 6 eyes, they confirm what I say. They just say, I cannot write that. You have to go to public with your name.
Okay, Erich, I want to ask you this. What is your position about the origin of mankind? Do you subscribe to the Zecharia Sitchin position that our DNA was manipulated by these space travelers?
Absolutely, definitely. And I know it for sure. In the beginning, we have no answer. Religion or philosophy tells us in the beginning was God. Then we should ask, okay, who created God? We have no answer. In science, they say no, in the beginning was a Big Bang. Then we have to ask, okay, what started the Big Bang? Nothing comes from nothing. So we have no idea, neither in religion nor in science, what the beginning was. I call it, in all respect with religion, I call it God or the great spirit of the universe, but I have no explanation of it. So we don't know nothing about the beginning. But then life has been spread out throughout the universe, and this continues, and we are part of it. I am a specialist of mythologies. I have really studied so many mythologies. And mythologies, I don't mean 5 or 10. I mean hundreds. And they all say, in the beginning, there was God, there was the universe, and the gods, in plural, created humans according their own image. If we take this as a word, we are the offsprings of something else. And concerning genetic manipulation, as Zachariah Sitchin and others suggested, I know for sure, because in the old texts, this is mentioned clearly. You know, I can give you an example. It maybe takes 2 minutes. In the Dead Sea Scrolls, one of the Dead Sea Scrolls was called Lamech Scroll. Who is Lamech? According to the Dead Sea Scroll, Lamech was a rich shepherd. He was with his animals some months away. One day he comes back to his home tents, and his wife, with the name of Batenosh, had just given life to a son, a kid, a baby. And Lamech said to his wife, Batenosh, but this can't be my son, because I was too many months away. But Batenosh swears she had no sexual contact with no whatever. She even says, not with another guardian, not with another soldier, with no one. But here is the boy. So Lamech doesn't know what to do, and he goes to his father, Methuselah, tells him the story. Methuselah has no answer either and goes to his father, which was no one else than the same Enoch, which disappeared in the fiery shadow. Enoch says to Methuselah, go to your son Lamech and say, the guardians of the sky, which means the extraterrestrials, have inseminated Batenosh without touching her sexually. They wanted to create a new generation. A great flood will destroy the old generation, and he should call this boy Noah. He would be the father of the new generations. Now we are all descendants of Noah. So we have extraterrestrial genes in us. And that's only one of the examples.
Well, listen to how interesting that parallels the Mary Jesus story of no contact. And boy, again, it ties religion right into this. It's just, it's a telephone game that took place thousands of years ago, and we just can't get it straight. In this Chariots of the Gods, the position of you and many researchers for the last, 50 years have, including Sitchin, take the position that ancient aliens were in fact ETs that traveled across the sky in a nuts and bolts spaceship. Today, though, we're hearing a lot of experiencers feel that this may be an interdimensional type of phenomenon. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think so too. I think some beings which are familiar to us, I mean, they look human-like. They have a head, they have a chest, they have bones like we, they have fingers, maybe 4 or 7 is not so important, is driving around the universe in a gigantic spaceship. I would call it a generation spaceship. And their goal is to influence the societies to create more technology in these societies. That finally all these societies, including our society, is able to construct gigantic spaceships to continue to bring intelligence out in the universe.
Go ahead. I was going to ask, the other day I interviewed Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum when we talked about a new human species that was found in the Philippines. And they were hobbit-like a species. And I'm curious because, it's proving that we're still finding new species of humans, not just different, types of animals. But I'm curious with the hobbit-like, if there is some connection with extraterrestrials, because I mean they were only 3 to 4 feet tall, and right now there's a lot of new discoveries. What do you think about new discoveries of human species that could link us to UFOs and aliens?
Definitely yes. I mean, we have in the past 1 or 2 years, we have this story going on with this extraterrestrial mummies found in some caves and tombs in Nazca in Peru. Now, some of these mummies are definitive falsifications. Others are real because their DNA shows no familiar type on our planet Earth. Now you could say, why not? There were always new species found on this planet, new forms of animals which we did not know before. But our DNA, the knowledge in genetics, is today so precise. From every human, you can clearly say what is his family, where does his family come from, how many thousand years back did they come from, Asia, whatever. You know exactly. Now, if we find some new species, that would mean, okay, that is a new animal, but in that kind of the mummies in Peru, it's not animals because they mummified their bodies and they constructed tombs and sarcophagus. So it's not an animal. It's an intelligent species. So new questions come up.
Right. Now, what would you point to today that would show the strongest evidence to date that an alien race was here? Besides the tomb of Pakal, ancient writings, is there some recent discovery or something new that we can point the rest of the world to say, hey, look?
No, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That is my great desire, my great wish. Until today, we have not an objective proof. I mean, an object. We have found no object which someone could present proudly to the scientific community and could tell, this is not from this planet. We have nothing like this. We know in mythology that such objects do exist. We even know where they are, but religion does not allow to go there. For example, the Ark of the Covenant. We know that the Ark of the Covenant is an extraterrestrial object. We know where the rest of the Ark of the Covenants are, deep under a cathedral of the Holy Mary in the Ethiopian city of Aksum. They know it there since thousands of years, that the rest of the Ark of Covenant is there. But nobody is allowed to go there to make scientific findings. So we know some of these places, but we don't have any objective proof.
That's what kills me, because I argue with people all the time, because I think your observations are so, to me, quite honestly, they're very obvious. That looks like a little airplane, not a bug. That looks like a runway, not what people claim it is. So what do you say to critics who dismiss all your work as just pseudoscience and speculation?
I'm sorry, I love the critics. I love the skeptics, because in the long discussion with me, they lose anyhow.
There you go.
It's a pleasure to stick with them. But we are not, normally, the skeptics are brilliant men, but they don't know enough on this subject. I and many of my colleagues have become specialists in this field, and we know, of course, a lot of it. So I can always, to the critics, come with arguments with which they did not know. And finally, the situation is clear. You know, in anthropology, for example, or in archaeology, you also have proofs by indications. Sometimes you only have a piece of bone, and you have the next piece of bone, and you cut these bones together, and you make a construction. These were the ancestors of the human race. And then a few years later, other bones appear. So you work with indication. In my field, we also have to work with indications, but some of these indications are so strong that you cannot reflect them because you have no answer to it. What I just said before, when Enoch is instructed, somebody says to the young Enoch, human, look out of the window. Do you see this little light out there? You humans call it moon, but the moon has no light by itself. And then he explains him about the phases of the moon, etc. These are scientific instructions. And in many cases, the humans have asked these teachers, where do you come from? In no case, they said, from Atlantis, or from another continent, or from another time. They always pointed to the sky and said, we came from that and that solar system. But the names doesn't mean to us. And in every case, when they disappeared, they promised to return in a far future. And this promise of returning is part of every religion until today.
Erich, I want to ask you this. You know, it's been thousands and thousands of years, and we see all the evidence, you know, all over the world of pyramids and objects that show that, you know, ancient aliens were here. But why do you think it's more of a spiritual connection that we continue without physical evidence right in front of our eyes, other than, you know, the scrolls? And it's been so many thousands of years, but to actually not have evidence in front of our eyes, such as an alien just plopping down in front of us, do you think it's more of a spiritual connection that we have with them than just looking for a UFO that's going to land in our yard?
Well, we will find definitely sooner or later one proof, an objective proof sooner or later. But at the moment we don't have it.
Right.
But we will find it. So at the moment, it is an intellectual, it is a spiritual way of thinking. Can we accept the possibility that we are not alone in the universe? Can we accept the possibility that it is possible to travel in the universe from star to star? You don't need the speed of light. You can do it with 2% of the speed of light. It doesn't matter with generation, spaceship, whatever. Can we accept the possibility of panspermia, which means that some of the extraterrestrials might very well look like we, which does not exclude that you have maybe other monsters out there which have nothing to do with humans. So if we accept a few of these premises, it becomes a spiritual question. How do we look to the indications? If we accept this, then we can say, okay, now this writing, for example, in the Mahabharata or in the Book of Enoch, I can accept, I can take as a serious source. So it's a question of our intellectual standpoint.
Go ahead. No, one more question with that. So do you think that that we could be offsprings of different races? Because physical look, there's different races all over the world. Asians, the Africans, the Europeans. We're different skin colors. Do you think there is different races of aliens that may have?
I really don't know, and especially in Europe, you cannot speak about races. As soon as you speak about, even if you speculate, they call you a racist or whatever.
Which is true.
You cannot really speak about races. To your question, I really have no answer. I don't know why we have different races on this planet Earth.
It's interesting. You were talking. You've studied all these different mythologies, and I was wondering if you find that the strongest evidence to me is when a mythology also matches the artifacts we find, and it's not just we have this sarcophagus cover that shows a guy flying into space. There's stories that go with that artifact. So to me, that gives it more credibility. Are you seeing an overlap from these different tales that match?
You see, in your country, in the United States, you have a lot of cave paintings coming from different Indian tribes. Or you have in your country, you have the Hopi Indians who create these little dummies, these little figures called kachinas. Now you ask them, what are these cave paintings? What is the meaning of these cave paintings? Or you ask the Hopi, what is the meaning of your kachina dolls? And then they say, these were the teachers from the sky. Thousands of years ago, for our ancestors. I have in South America, in the upper Amazon River, we have a tribe with the name of Kayapo. I was there some years ago. We filmed them. They had a wonderful dance. One of their teacher dresses himself in a straw garment, completely covered with straw. He has no opening for eyes, mouth, ears, etc. And the rest of the tribe dances around this straw man, and they sing the story. He was the visitor from outer space long time ago, from to the time of their ancestor. He was the first teacher who taught them in agriculture. He learned them about astronomy. He disappeared finally with the promise to return in a far future. So here we have a living mythology, together with the straw man in a straw garment, and they're dancing. Or just go to Mexico, for example. You go to Teotihuacan. There, the Indians have a big pole in the ground, and 4 Indians dance around this pole. Then they climb up with ropes. They jump down, but the length of the pole is so created that everyone circles around the pole only 13 times. Now, these are 4 Indians. 4 Indians circle around the pole 13 times. 4 times 13 makes 52. 52 is in the Maya calendar the lowest figure for the returning of the gods. every 52 or average of 52, 108, etc., etc. Or you go on March 31st, you go to Central America, you go to Chichen Itza, Mexico, and then you see in the early morning when the sun goes up, how the light and shadow creates something like a snake, which climbs down exactly on the stairway where God Kukulkan is chiseled there in stone. So the message is clear. God Kukulkan descended to the human. You see this in stone. They knew exactly what they were doing.
That's another great example of it's hard for me to comprehend people of that period being able to construct something with that precision to make this thing still work. Thousands of years later, we can still see that phenomenon. That's compelling to me. You also,
and there is a lot of these examples, but I have to stop. I have to run
tell
away.
me. Right. You brought up again that it's always come back. Even the Jesus story, Jesus is going to come back. So it's interesting how the religious themes reflect the same as this other mythologies.
Yes, but not only our today's religion. The so-called gods, the extraterrestrials, before they disappeared, they promised to the humans that they will return. Now, centuries and centuries, maybe thousands of years later, the first white man comes to South America. It was Francisco Pizarro, the Spanish conqueror. The natives, the Incas, believed that he's the long-awaited God who finally returned. They all fell down on their knees. They adored him. Later, they understand he was not the God, but in the beginning, they believed he's the long-awaited God. The same thing happened in Hawaii. Now, Hawaii is far away from the continent, an island in the South Pacific. There, the British explorer James Cook comes for the first time. What happened? All the natives believe he's the long-awaited God who finally returned. The same thing in Central America. Hernando Cortes, another Spanish man, came together with Moctezuma. Moctezuma was the king, a well-educated man, the king of the Aztec. He also fell down on his ground on the body and said, believed he is the long-awaited God. So this promise of returning is not an invention of Christianity. It existed thousands of years before Christianity explored. So it was the promise of the extraterrestrials. And still today, I am educated as a Christian. We believe that Jesus Christ will one day return. But the Muslim society believe one day their Mahdi will return. As we know, the great Jewish society believes one day their Messiah will return. It doesn't matter which religion you turn. They all have their believing of someone who returns, who promised in the past to return. And in my eyes, it was the extraterrestrials. They will return, and maybe, don't forget the UFO cases and the abduction cases, maybe they are back. They are observing us. They are learning our languages, our science, our political systems, our weapons, etc.
What frustrates me is that you just brought up Christianity and Muslims and everything. All these religions, they take that as law, and it's true. He's coming back. He's coming back. And it's completely accepted. No question whatsoever. However, you bring up that the aliens are going to come. And no, that's not real. This is more plausible than that.
But honestly, not every religion can be right.
That's right.
Some of them must be wrong. They are all wrong.
That's right. That's the answer. They're all wrong.
Well, to me, it reminds me of even my hometown when I was a kid.
Granola, Kansas.
Granola, Kansas. But to actually, when you start a story and you tell 5 people, and those 5 people tell people, and then all of a sudden when it gets back to you, every one of them's a different story.
I think that's Erich's position, that this was a long
exactly.
telephone game before we had writing,
You're exactly
and the
right.
story got jumbled up.
Exactly
and
right.
Like you said, Erich, if you change a couple of words in the Bible from like angel to E.T., it changes the meaning of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It changed the whole thing. Change heaven into sky or space. Change angels into E.T. And, there was a war in heaven. Even in our Christian Jewish tradition, there was a war in heaven. One day, an archangel with the name of Lucifer came to the Almighty God and said, we don't serve you anymore. Now, if heaven would be the place of absolute happiness, united with the Almighty God, then you have no war. Then there is no opposition. So heaven is not the happiness place after that. Heaven was space. There were wars in space. And it's not only the Christian and Jewish tradition who says this. Practically many mythologies start with the war in heaven, including Zeus, the Greek god. Before he comes to the planet Earth, he has to fight against Kronos. So it's always the same story.
It is. It's interesting. And even Greek mythology ties into there.
Yeah.
You also state that you believe we are currently under observation by ETs today. What are you basing that on?
I was, for decades, rather a skeptic in UFO cases. There was too many rubbish around and too many people who told things which I could not believe. And then the situation changed slowly with Professor Dr. John Mack.
I'm just going to say that.
From
Absolutely.
Harvard University with his book Abductions. I learned him personally. We have been talking a few hours together, under 4 hours. And slowly, I had to change my position. Then I hear, that this Canadian ex-defense minister, Mr. Paul Hellyer, speak about extraterrestrials. Then I hear that some of the astronauts and cosmonauts, some of them I know personally, said, yes, there are extraterrestrials. So slowly, I had to change my position. And in the meantime, I have reasons to believe we are under observation. Somebody is watching us.
Seems like they never left, probably, right?
Well, I cannot exclude that.
Right.
Well,
I don't know.
But you think about it, thousands of years ago, they seemed to worship. Then it seemed to go through a period of non-believers. And, a few people have sightings, but now in the last 50 years since Chariots of the Gods, now a lot of people are transforming into believers again, or at least more openly about it.
Yeah.
And so I feel there was a time maybe that people did either maybe there wasn't as many sightings or just not enough people to come out and say this happened. So,
Eric, what about the newest stuff, like Antarctica? It seems to me like they're finding some stuff down in Antarctica. If one of these things is real as they say it is, it'll change things overnight. It'll be like disclosure.
Yes, but we have no proof again. I don't know if all these stories which I hear about Antarctica or Arctica is true. I have not the conclusive proof. I don't know if, and I was never there with my own eyes. So
I'm glad that you take that
don't know.
position, because that helps, because I often hear people argue against you saying that, he believes in this and he believes in that. And that's not true at all. You don't succumb to all of these things. You just base it on the ancient texts that you've read and the artifacts that we actually have.
Well, in my books, of course, I write only about things which I know. When I write about Palenque in Mexico, I know the archaeological literature. I know what these reasonable persons say. And I came to another position. Or when I write about Nazca in Peru, these lines, I know the whole literature. I know what the scientific community says about Nazca. And then I conclude, sorry, that's not enough. You don't you don't speak about the real mysteries in Nazca, etc. So I know what I'm talking and I know what I'm writing. And many times I don't know things. Then I confess, I don't know. Concerning this Arctic or Antarctic stuff, I really don't know what is true.
Eric, why do you think the government and institutions seem to cover up so many discoveries? Why do you think that is?
Well, first, I don't think even it's the government. It's just our society. Our society is composed of many reasonable people like journalists and scientists, and they all are reasonable. And to be unreasonable means to be ridiculous. You are ridiculed by the society. So the UFO topic or the topic of extraterrestrials seems for many scientists and journalists to be unreasonable, and they don't want to be ridiculed. Soon as they work intensively for only a few months with the arguments we have, they all change their mind. But in reality, they don't touch it. They think it's ridiculous, and they don't want to be ridiculed. So it's not a cover-up in my mind. It's just don't talk about it. On the other hand, I know that religions are afraid of it. Religions are afraid of extraterrestrials. If these stories turns out to be true, then we lose. But in reality, they never lose God. I myself, as an 84-year man, I have still a deep believing in God. I don't know what God is, as I said before, but I pray every evening. You don't lose God when you deal with extraterrestrials. But religions are afraid that the believers, they will lose their gods, they will don't go to churches anymore, so they don't want to have extraterrestrials here.
I agree. That's a frustrating thing for me always, how religious people think that this is going to dismiss their religion. God is still there. Why couldn't God create aliens as well? I mean, just...
Of course he did. Yeah, that's exactly.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to give you my big question here, Erich. What is it going to take? What new discovery will there be that will tip the pendulum towards, more people accepting this idea of ancient aliens? To me, it doesn't seem that outlandish at all. In fact, like we talked about earlier, it actually, to me, in my way of thinking, it seems much more sensical that an advanced culture would build spaceships and fly here. I feel like Apple computers will do that in 1,000 years, and will be doing this, right? And then, yet these religious fanatics believe that these miracles happened and God left and came back and was died and reborn and all these things that are completely impossible. Yet it's possible that the other thing is possible. So what's it going to take?
What we need is, for example, an object, a building, something artificial on the moon, or on the backside on the moon, or an artificial satellite somewhere in our solar system. Soon as we find something like this, then the case is clear. Between Mars and Jupiter, there is the asteroid belt. And an American space probe with the name of Dawn was traveling for years to the biggest asteroid with the name of Ceres. And they have made wonderful pictures from the surface of Ceres. And among these pictures, you definitely find a rectangular out of stone. Now, Ceres is a complete dead planet. There is nothing there, no air, no wind, no water, no pollution, nothing. So who created this rectangular out of stone? And you see it on the pictures. So we have questions, but the scientific community doesn't give answer because only a few of the people know about these pictures. The rest doesn't even know about it.
Yeah, that's part of the problem. And I just wish there was a way that we could. Well, people do speculate that we have these structures on the moon. You've heard a lot of these stories, I'm sure. But I, like yourself, I haven't seen enough concrete evidence to believe that.
Yeah, me not either.
We need...
Exactly. Concrete evidence. I need evidence, clear evidence, confirmed by the scientists. That's what I'm missing.
I enjoy these... Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I have to run away here.
Okay.
Because I have a dinner in a hotel just about 10 minutes from here, and I should be there.
Well, give us the address, and we'll be over there.
Right, we'll be right there.
Okay.
Well, we will let you go then, Erich, but I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us.
Such an honor.
Couldn't have enjoyed this more.
I am in the United States. I think in a few weeks.
Oh, you're going to be a contact in the desert.
We will be there.
I'm there too. Yes.
Yeah, we'll be there, and we hope to see you there. But people, get your tickets and see this legend. So go have a great dinner, and we'll hopefully talk to you again soon.
Thank you for the interview, and let's talk together.
We will talk
in another time again.
Oh, of course.
Thank you for the interview. Thank you for calling me.
You got
it. Bye-bye to everyone.
Take care, Erich. Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Tony, you might have to run that spot for Contact in the Desert because Erich von Däniken will be the keynote speaker there, of course. He's going to be the main attraction, as always.
The main attraction. I mean, like I said,
outside
this
of you.
guy, I was going to say, I'll let him have the moment. But we'll talk to another legend right here. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Join me, George Norrie, in Indian Wells, California for the 7th Annual Contact in the Desert UFO Conference, May 31st to June 3rd. Contact in the Desert is an epic weekend of adventure filled with exciting explorations into ancient aliens, human origins, crop circles, UFO sightings, disclosure, and the newest evidence of ongoing contact. This amazing weekend offers over 50 lectures, 40 workshops, 8 exciting panels, special events, and a luncheon that I'm hosting. Contact in the Desert also features leading experts including Giorgio Tsoukalos, David Wilcock, Linda Moulton Howe, Michael Tellinger, Erich von Däniken, Doc Wallach, and many more important researchers and scientists in the field. Contact in the Desert is your place for inside information. Join us at thecontactinthedesert.com to get your tickets today. It's time to make contact. That's contactinthedesert.com. Don't miss it. ContactInTheDesert.com.
All right, we're back. This is Tony and Captain Ron. We just had the legend Erich von Däniken on the show, and he's one of those gentlemen that you just kind of sit back and relax and hear the old stories, because he's traveled the world. He's the ones that have read the text. He's not like us just sitting in the studio reading other people's work. He goes out and writes the pieces. So we appreciate somebody like him to
It's a real treat to see him in person and get to talk to him here today. So that's reason enough, again, another person, reason enough to go to Contact.
84 years old, like you said, you can't keep up with him. So, and you know he loves this work, and he wouldn't be doing it. And but if you guys haven't picked up your tickets yet, please pick up your tickets to Contact in the Desert, May 31st through June 3rd. And then he'll also be at Alien Con too. So we want to make sure you get those tickets. We'll be there. We're going to be interviewing tons of speakers and going to lectures and learning just like you guys. So.
And you'll be doing a little juggling performance too.
Juggling in my thong. So, yeah. All right. Well, thank you, guys. We appreciate you for tuning in all the time with Truth Be Told with Captain Ron and myself. And please go to our YouTube channel and subscribe. I know you're listening or watching right now, but please subscribe. Share these videos with people. We really appreciate you getting this out there. And also to our truthbetoldworldwide.com website. We try to update that as much as we can. But until next time, we'll see you then.